All right, this is my video to show how to do it yourself, switch out the Alde heating system glycol from the Century yellow-green glycol fluid to the Rhogard, or the new Alde fluid. I'm starting out by showing the materials you'll need to gather, and I just got these based on looking at a few different people's how-to documents on the internet, but nobody's actually shown a video of the complete swap out from the old glycol to the new, so I decided I should maybe make a video about it. So to start out with, we've got these materials here. That's a small transfer pump that I bought at Harbor Freight, 1/10 horsepower. I don't think I'll need anything very powerful. And that is to help pump the new glycol in. There's some clear plastic tubing and some adapters. I went with 5/8 outside the diameter and 1/2 inside diameter. It's 20 feet because I'm going to need to cut it in half. People talk about cleaning out the system with an air compressor. I don't have an air compressor, so I'm just going with this tire inflator that I also bought at Harbor Freight. There's some fittings for the pipes. This is right here, this is a 1/2 to 3/4, so I can fit it with a garden hose fitting if I need to, and that's going to help me put it into the heating system. Here's the garden hose fitting right here, and I will show people how I assemble it. The pump here comes with a short hose I'm going to use as the intake hose for when I'm pumping the new glycol in. There's some, here is the new Rhogard Ultra fluid. I was able to get some concentrated Rhogard for my system. It's a lot cheaper to get the concentrated than to get the pre-diluted stuff that they sell at Truma. If you contact this company, you go on their website, you call them, you ask them where to get it, and they will tell you how to get it. It's much cheaper. This distilled water is for flushing the system. It's a couple buckets. I bought a nice clean new one for cutting the Rhogard Ultra in half, and I will show people when I do that. There's a garden hose. I'm going to flush out the system with garden hose water first, and then I'm going to move to the distilled. And here is a dirty bucket to collect the old fluid. A few other materials that's good to have are these hose clamp pliers. You're definitely going to need those for this job. I got some old milk jugs, used milk jugs to put the old glycol in, because I hear that you need to take it to the hazardous liquid at the dump. And I have a level here too, so that when I drain the glycol, I can be sure that my camper is tilted slightly back. So the camper I'm working on here is, let me zoom out a bit. It's a Cirrus 820 by New Camp. My year is 2017. So on this particular camper, the first step is to obviously drain the old glycol out. And so I've lifted the camper up on the jacks, and I've removed the back panel here. I've got my bucket for collecting. And I'm gonna open up this right here, collect it into the bucket. I'm gonna use my hose clamp pliers for that. Alright, I'm going to use my vice grip pliers to get this stopper out. It's pretty well stuck in there, as it should be. So we've only got about, I'd say, a gallon and a half that came out. I'm going to go ahead with step number 2 and flush it out with some garden hose water. Okay, for this next step, I'm here inside my camper. The expansion tank in this model is kept in the camper's closet. So I'm going to remove the expansion tank and I'm going to shove some hoses in these parts and I'll show you guys when I get to that. Alright, so here is the setup for the garden hose water flush. I've cut this clear plastic tubing in half to 10-foot sections, and I put these brass adapters on into the tubes. I believe this one is the inlet. No, sorry, this one is the outlet, and this one is the inlet. I've got this one connected to a garden hose. Hopefully sealed tight by those hose clamps. Alright, the next step is to replace that drain plug and go ahead and run hose water through here so that the waste will come out into this plastic bin. We're gonna try that now and see how it goes. Maybe not full pressure. Alright, haven't got anything coming out yet. Alright, success. We've got the wastewater coming out into the bin. We're just going to let that keep running until it's clear. And hopefully that won't take too long. Alright, success. We have clear water coming out of the outlet into the waste bin. Alright folks, here's the next step. I've got the pump hooked up. I've got the outlet going into the Alde system. I just left it where it was. I took the garden hose off and I put it on this end of the pump for the outlet. And then in the inlet, I've got it connected to a hose that is in some distilled water. I heard that it's best to flush the system with distilled water after the garden hose water just to make sure to get any potential impurities that were in the water out and get the system really clean before we put the new glycol in. So we're gonna see how this goes. We've got the distilled water going in and coming out. Didn't take very long with this pump. This pump went really fast actually. It took about 30 seconds. The wastewater looks totally clear, so that's good. That's what we wanted. I'm going to attempt to clean out the lines of all the distilled water with this little 12-volt tire inflator miniature air compressor. I'm not sure if it's going to work. I'm going to try. That supposedly helps save the new glycol, because if I don't clear out the pipes of the distilled water, it's going to dilute the new glycol. Not the end of the world if it doesn't work, but we'll give it a try. So it appears to be working. I just left that hose fitting in the top of the inlet valve, and then I'm putting the mini compressor's outlet right there. And you can see the water is getting pushed out. Just for shits and giggles, I decided to take the plug out of this again, and then I'm gonna run a little more water through it and see, a little more air through it and see if any liquid comes out this end. Very much liquid, but it is slightly yellow colored, so that was good to take the plug out because I think a little bit of the old glycol was still trapped in that spot right there. Okay, so this next step here is I'm going to put the new Alde glycol into the system. I've raised the nose of the camper a little bit to try to help bleed air out. I diluted the Ultra concentrate with half distilled water. So here's my Rhogard fluid that's mixed with distilled water. I'm going to put the pump's intake hose in there. I just realized I totally forgot to clean the expansion tank itself. So I'm gonna rinse it off with hose water first and then make sure I get the inside with some distilled water. Just here in the closet itself because there's a little bleeder hose there and I don't want to mess around with disconnecting that right now. Alright, so I have cleaned the expansion tank. Definitely something that needs to get done because there was a lot of residue of the old fluid in there. You can see it kind of stained it yellow a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so after I pumped a few gallons of the new glycol in with the little service pump that I created, I blew it out with air again until there was some clear water in there, and then finally some glycol, the new glycol came out. So I know that it's only the new glycol in there now. And then I ran the pump continuously to burp it a little bit. Here you go to settings, you put it on pump level speed 5, and then you go here. Its default setting is therm, so you say continuous, and that's how you run it continuously to cycle out the air bubbles. I'm actually going to turn it off because I need to add some more glycol now. As you can see, the expansion tank is currently empty. Now I'm just going to add the glycol manually. Okay, added about another 3/4 gallon. I'm gonna go over here to the pump to try to burp it again. Same thing, run the continuous pump. You can hear some burping happening. Let's see if the level falls now. It fell a little bit, but not really. So it might be full now, which is great. I'm finding that now that it's close to full, I'm just going continuous, letting it run for a few seconds, and then checking the level. It's burped a little bit. I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to let it sit, settle. Do that again until I'm sure that it's full of new glycol and it hasn't got any air bubbles in it anymore. So yeah, I've managed to burp it quite a bit. It's now down to the bottom here. I only have 2/3 of a gallon left. I feel like maybe I wasted a little too much when I was flushing the system, but if this is enough to at least get all the air bubbles out, then I'm good. So I believe I've got this thing fully burped. All in all, I used about 4.5 gallons of the Rhogard solution cut with distilled water.